Hello, good evening, friends. I am looking forward to a very intriguing conversation with a renowned educationalist and academician of our country who is a professor, associate professor of repute at one of the most reputed and leading universities of the country, Jawaharlal Nehru University, Dr. A. Bimol Akoijam. And you all have heard his interview with Karan Thapar, and you all have heard him speak publicly. So we would know his views, according to him, what could be the way forward for the problem to resolve that in Manipur. Sir, Jai Hind, and thank you very much for taking our time, sir.
My pleasure.
Sir, tell me what, according to you, could be the way forward to bring about peace in Manipur, sir.
One of the first things that there are certain issues that we have seen. It's an unprecedented that in a country like India, you have allowed a violence of this nature to go on for more than 2 months. I think there needs to be a very serious and immediate stock-taking exercise to do why we have not been able to stop this violence. To my mind, there is a multiple and layered nature of failure at the level of the government decision making. Both the union government as well as the state government have terribly failed to rein in the rein in this to ensure that the read of the state works, but we have not been able to do it. And some institutions like the police, the paramilitary forces, and the army as a second layer, in which we have also seen a failure of that kind. And the third is that the civil society has been deeply partitioned, sort of in reporting. Particularly, I'm quite disturbed with the manner in which the national media have reported the event. Rather than dousing the flame by taking partition positions, they have created one community as the enemy or the perpetrators, rather than seeing it as a clash between two communities. So there is a multi-layered sort of a failure. I think each of these people at each layer, the government, the security establishment, and the civil society, I think we need to be honest and try to take corrective measures as soon as possible. If not, if I want to use the word immediately, one must be able to do this. So I think that when we think about way forward, I think these three things should be taken into account. For the government, I think there should be a clarity whether who is in charge. Is it the union government under Article 355 is taking charge of the um, law and order in the state? There is a murky area that needs to be clarified immediately. Whether the state government is in charge of the law and order, or is it the union government who is in charge? Because there is a very murky nature in which the things happen. That the unified command is reportedly under the advisor Kuldeep Singh, who is the former DG of CRPF. At the same time, CM will come up on a conference in news conference and tell that he chaired a session. So there is this confusion: who is actually in charge of the situation? That must be clarified. And the second one, as far as the security forces is concerned, I think there has been, unfortunately, these institutions have been jeopardized, and very sadly, the organization you have also served, Indian Army itself, has been, under scanner. India is many, unfortunately. Besides the police and the Assam Rifles, the people have been accusing of they being partitioned in the conflict, both the police as well as Assam Rifles. And in some sense, the army, the regular army I'm talking about, uh, you know, people have been casting aspersions on the Indian Army as well, in terms of, say, for example, the serious thing. I've never heard of this nature before, that the Indian Army officers, commanding officers, their unit names, their regiment names have been disclosed and shared. I mean, which is never happened to the best of my knowledge. The Indian Army should also immediately take corrective measures. They have, I think the Third Corps had condemned, but I think condemnation is not enough. They must develop a trust with the people, especially with the army, One can think of police and to some extent even the paramilitary forces, but the army should not take chances on their image and their ability to connect with the people and the trust of the people. I think this must be taken into account immediately to develop this war of perception, and the army's neutrality and their efficacy must be established immediately. As for the civil society, the newspaper, I don't know how the Press Council of India is going to do. The partisan nature of the reporting and naming communities and presenting one community as a villain and so on, which is the distortion of information, must be corrected immediately. To my mind, I think these are the very fundamental before we talk about other issues which is related to go forward. I think these three layers must be taken into account immediately.
So you spoke about the army. So initially there was a on Twitter it was trending that there's some Maite army officers, they should get posted out of Manipur and such things. And I was the first one to go on national media and I spoke this. In the army, we do not know who's Maite, who's Kuki, who's Naga, who's Tangkur, who's Baite, Paite, who's Pangal. We
Absolutely,
don't know. We don't
absolutely,
know who's Muslim, who's Hindu, who's Sikh. We just know one thing: the nation comes first, and we'll do our duty. We'll discharge
absolutely.
our duties
That's
impartially.
what we call it, the corporate ideology of the armed forces. You all order and you follow command because he is your superior, is your commanding officer, not because he belongs to so and so caste or so and so linguistic group or the regions of the country. That's the ethos of the army. But that has been, people have been casting aspersion on that ability, that corporate ideology of the army as an organization, that the people have been accusing and asking the army to remove Meitei officer itself is challenging that very ethos of the Indian army. And I think the army should not keep quiet. Those people who have been asking to transfer or remove Meitei officers, those should be taken into task because they cannot cast aspersions on the army as an organization. Despite the Third Corps has already said that we don't work in this fashion. The army has already said, despite having said and clarified by the army, that people are still insisting that the Meitei army officers should be removed. I think that's very unfortunate, but the army should take care of this immediately and also investigate how did the names of those officers got leaked to them, those people in conflict. I think to keep quiet, Indian army keeping quiet on these issues will harm the institutions, the organization as a whole and its corporate ideology.
Right, sir. I agree. In fact, you mentioned about the Sphere Corps. In fact, I was ADC to the General Officer commanding 3 Corps. In fact,
Ah,
two Lieutenant Generals. In fact, this is the Sphere Corps tie that I'm wearing, in fact. And then I went to the Assam Rifles. So the bonding I have towards Northeast, especially when I say Northeast, I do not only mean Manipur or Nagaland or Mizoram or Arunachal because I started my schooling, my class nursery was in Northeast, in fact. So I spent the happiest times of my life in Northeast. And like, sir, I have my best friends, even till today, are Maites. They are also Cookies. They are also Nagas. So the kind of understanding I have of the people of the Northeast, it is something perhaps I would be knowing more of Manipur than my own home city, for that matter. That is the love that I have. And you rightly said, sir, in a way, you spoke about the mainstream media. So I know very few channels who are actually doing it genuinely from their heart because for a cause. Rest, I agree with you. The media, the way they do it, it is
this
actually
is,
disgusts me
in fact,
sometimes.
yes, actually, I'm quite surprised. I'm quite surprised by the manner in which the national media have been reporting this carnage in the state. Because, see, the natural justice demands that you need to tell both sides, people who are involved in the conflict, the natural justice, the very idea of the natural justice demands that the both sides should be heard and then report as far as possible as objectively. But if you do an analysis of the content of the media reportage so far, you will definitely find that this has been one-sided and very partisan views have been taken, which actually aggravate the situations rather than cooling down the temper and so on. I think it is very sad to see the Indian press, especially the national media. So, Press Council of India must look into this as far as possible if possible, even the judiciary must take suo motu notice of this partition, because it is, the media reporters has become part of the conflict. You know, what's happening in Manipur is, as I have said, the police as an institution has been communalized. That failure is very unfortunate.
Maybe a doctor's connection seems to have gone off.
Can
But
you
yes,
hear
doctor,
me?
you are back.
Can you hear me?
Yes, doctor.
I was
Yes,
saying
doctor,
that
we
the
can hear you.
police from the day one has been sort of communalized as an institution. Very sad. I believe that many of the IPS officers who are doing, irrespective of their communities, are men of integrity as in a professional, police forces. And unfortunately, people have cast aspersions on the officers as well as the units. People have been doing it. I don't deny that there could be rotten apple in any organizations, but to condemn and jeopardize the whole institution of police itself is very bad for the country, for the law and order and civilized order. Similarly, casting aspersion on the Assam Rifles is also bad. But I think these organizations and leaders must take into account. People say no, there is no smoke without fire. I have seen video recordings and so on, which
No, but
speaks
here,
of possible failure on the part of these organizations. The worst part, as I said, very unfortunate part is.
so sir's internet connection seems bad, but yes, the very fact is, let me tell you, Army and Assam Rifles don't take
Yeah,
sides. They do
that
their
that,
job
that
in the
arm. Can
duty.
you hear me? I
Yes, I
lost
can
you.
hear you.
So the army is has also become a casualty in this. I still believe that the army and defense minister and headquarters here must take serious note of the fact that the unit names and officers have been leaked out and must be seriously addressed, and publicly also. There should be a transparency. Must be addressed. How did these information were leaked out? Who were responsible for this leakages? And also taken into task those people who are still casting aspersion on the army by asking for the transfer of so and so, officers from so and so communities. That's very bad, because once these institutions like army has been jeopardized in these fashions, barely we can hope for any sense of order in this country. I think that must be taken into account. Any silence on the part of the defense ministry or the army headquarters would be very, very unfortunate and will be party to this self-destruction of the institution itself.
So when I was with the Assam Rifles after doing the ADC to the General Officer Commanding Corps Commander, I we had Kuki troops who are Kuki, who are Maite, who are Nagas, and we all fought shoulder to shoulder. We all coexisted together. There was never a problem. So anyway, before I let you go, one last question for you, sir. The state government came up with a panel of 51 names for the peace negotiation committee, and they were 25 Maites, they were about 11 cookies, there were 10 Nagas. So, what do you say about this peace committee? My take was, I spoke on national media as well. I said that it should be a neutral party who understands the area, who understands the tribal culture, the ethnic culture, the tribal affinity well. That was my take on it. I would like to know your take on it, sir.
I think it was whatever is the intent. Intent may be good, but we have already seen that from the word go, it's a failure. That peace committee. I think the way to go about establishing peace, besides these three things that I've said, institutional taking care of it, must be, I said, number one, there must be a clarity who is in charge of the situation. Is it the union government under 355, or is it the state government? Because there's a confusion, because Kuldeep Singh is in charge of the unified command, or at the same time CM is saying that he chaired unified command meeting. So there's a confusion. That should be a clarity, so that this violence can be stopped. Second, as I said, the police officers and the those commanding the Assam Rifles, DZ must take into account there's a serious allegation against the these organizations. They must take in account there are videos going on and so on. And the last one is for the army to take care of it. As I said, the defense ministry and the army headquarters has to respond to these issues. They can't keep quiet. I mean, keeping quiet would mean with the suspicions against these organizations will continue, and that will aggravate the violence. The next, as far as the peace committee, I believe that there should be a joint parliamentary and the political party must start by bringing these political parties from the state. You can rope in the politicians from Mizoram, Nagaland and Assam to begin with, and then see whether they can have a meeting among the political, those 10 MLAs from the one community, another 10 from another community, and those belonging to the Meiteis community and the Muslims, the Pangals and so on. They must meet and talk under the aegis of some of these parliamentary move. They might start talking at least. Another level, I believe that once this is done, that will break the ice. You can't just keep them separate. They need to talk, whatever it is, the situation. Similarly, I believe that a genuine effort should be made by robbing in prominent citizens from the country, particularly from the India's northeast. I can name some of the few very respected figures like Niketu Iralu from Nagaland, and people like this Barua, who's a filmmaker from Assam. People of
Janu
that
Barua, sir.
kind,
Janu Barua. Janu
Janu
Barua.
Barua, they should be roped
I've
in
had the
along.
honor. Thank you for taking his name. I've had the honor of working for a film. He directed a film in which I acted, which was produced by Priyanka Chopra. It's not yet released as
Okay.
yet, but you will see that film very soon.
That's nice. I love to see that film, and
Yeah.
so I think prominent citizens from the regions, but not this conventional, what I often call the entrepreneurs of peace. They themselves are partitioned because I have noticed many of them. They don't have a clean mind. So I think these people like Nikitu Iralu and Janu Barua, along with Ratan Thiam and others, and some of the very respected religious leaders, must be roped in to start so that people start talking under their aegis, rather than this 51 members, which is, I find it at one level very ridiculous to start with. I think a genuine effort should be made at the second level of these prominent citizens, and under them, people should be invited and talk. And I think that's the way to begin. So stop the violence. For that, you take care of the three things I said. Who's in command of the situation is the state government or the union government. Assam Rifle DG and the police DG must address this trust deficit that people have and take immediate corrective measures. Army must respond to this crisis of casting aspersion on the organization in transparent manner, address how did this name of the officers were leaked, and then fix those people, and then you arrange this JPC and rope in politicians from the other states, and then let them talk. These members of the 60 members should talk to each other, and then prominent citizens must initiate, such as I told you, Niketu Iralu, Ratan Thiam, Janu Barua, and all of these things, but avoid. My thing is this: entrepreneurs of peace in the name of conflict management. Many of them, I have been part of many groups. It is atrocious to see some of these peacemakers taking partitions positions and on very well-known faces from the regions, leave them aside and drop in people like Ratan Thiam, Janu Barua, and Niketu Iralu, and under them let some of the civil society start talking. I think that's the way to move forward as far as I am concerned.
Right, sir. Sir, thank you very much for your time. It's been very, very enlightening, and you've given some very, very good suggestions. Truly value that, sir. Thank you very much. I hope peace comes to Manipur and a beautiful land like
Thank you. I hope so.
very good, sir. And I've always maintained my best friends are from the Northeast, sir.
All right. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
sir.
Oh, my pleasure.
Bye, sir. Jai Hind, sir.